Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Ciphr Payroll. It's our tax year end 2023 customer update. Great to have you with us today. I'm Catherine, I'm Ciphr's head of content, and with me today is Amanda, who some of you might already know is Ciphr's payroll sales manager. How are you today, Amanda?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Yeah, really excited for today's session. So welcome to everyone for joining.
Excellent. We're raring to go here to help you prepare for the new tax year. A quick look at our agenda before we hand over to Amanda. So Amanda's going to run through legislative changes for payroll in 2023, a quick look at Ciphr Payroll's development update, and then she's going to run through the tax year end clear down and P60s process. So if you're a bureau customer, you may not wish to stay for that, but at the end there is time for question and answer. So if you do have specific questions you want answering, send those through using the webinar control panel and we'll get to those at the end. If you're watching live, this recording will be emailed to you tomorrow automatically. That means you can return to it any time and go through like the tax year end clear down process, for example. We're also going to put this video on Ciphr Academy, so if you have access to that portal, you'll be able to refer to it there for any kind of queries you have in relation to the new tax year setup. Okay, that's enough from me. Over to Amanda now for a review of 2022 and a look ahead to 23.
Wonderful. Thank you, Catherine, for that lovely introduction. So, so I thought I would start with a look back at 2022. If you don't mind moving on a slide, so just the year itself was, we were post lockdown and there was so many things going on. We had everything from the invasion of Ukraine, which has just gone through its first anniversary. We had 3 prime ministers, which was just ridiculous. The Queen's Jubilee celebrations, and that fabulous Paddington Bear and marmalade sandwich little thing with the Queen. Rest in peace, Your Majesty. And of course, with lots of different prime ministers, that also meant different chancellors. And I shall be going through the effects of the mini budget later on as well, and of course rocketing inflation and how that's affected every business, but yay the lionesses too. So so what a year. So what about the changes in payroll's world in 2022 as well? It was quite a rocky year. Lots of changes, lots of things off and on again. We never normally have changes to national insurance during a tax year. In payroll, it's the one constant that you can rely on normally. We've had mid-year tax changes, but just national insurance, it was horrible. These are changes that you've all had to endure as payroll managers, and that we've done our best to support as well through the year to make sure that you are still accurate and compliant for all of your calculations. We were, of course, expecting the Health and Social Care Levy to become a permanent tax from April 2023, but I don't think really anyone could have foreseen what was going to come. So congratulations to you all for getting through that and supporting your employees and your colleagues with all the communications and the many, many queries that surely you would have had around that time. So well done. Let's not do that again. You can read a slide, you can see what those changes were, but yeah, it was crazy. So the Health and Social Care Levy is now gone. Harper versus Brazil, I don't know how to say that. But I will come back to this later again, but of course that made the calculation of holiday pay much more complex for everybody. It is important to note that that's not a change in the legislation, working time legislation particularly, that's all unchanged, but it's a change in the interpretation of existing law. So then finally, the impact of the mini budget. With Kwasi and Liz, both very short tenures, but really impactful, mostly for the wrong reasons. I will be covering all of these things in a little bit more detail on the next slides. So tax changes to start with. The coming year's statutory rates, the personal allowances are still frozen for the next 5 years. They have been extended for another couple of years. The rates will apply to England, Northern Ireland and Wales. Wales are permitted through their devolved governance to change their percentages, but for the moment they are still the same. Scotland have made changes, and we'll see those shortly. Those will be coming next. But as these rates are fixed for the next 5 years, for the moment we do have certainty of the personal allowances. Of course, we hope that the changes to national insurance are going to settle down to after the awful time we had last year. The rates were frozen to help recoup some of the spending of the government over the last couple of years with furlough and the COVID grants. After the repeal of the removal of the 45% tax banding, you'll see that the top banding of taxable pay has been reduced from £150,000 a year to 125,141. That actually is the additional rate threshold. It's the income level at which an individual won't have any personal allowances. For every £1 of personal allowances over £100,000 of earnings, £2 of personal income is withdrawn. So that's why it's that 25,140. It's double the 12,570. I hope that makes sense. That's how we've arrived at that figure. So the Exchequer expects the impact of that change to be an additional £420 million of revenue in 2023, and it also means that an additional 232,000 people will be brought into that top tax band of the 45 pence. So year on year, over this this next 5 years to 2028, in the final year, the 27-28 tax year, it should raise an additional £855 million in additional revenue. So it's very much calculated. What the Exchequer expects to receive over this time. The Scottish income tax is a lot more complicated, as you can see here. There's a lot more bandings. This is determined by residency. So if your main place of residence is in Scotland, you are a Scottish taxpayer. The Scottish Government also choose to reduce that top band. The top rate threshold is also £125,140. They also added 1 pence to those top 2 bands there, the higher and the top rates. So they're both 1 pence more. Personal allowances are also frozen at 12,570 as for the rest of the UK. And the Scottish Fiscal Commission has forecast that income tax will raise 15. I think that's 15 billion. When I wrote that, it obviously made more sense. It looks like 15 billion more in total in the 23-24 year in Scotland. So there's some unusual impacts for all of these different bandings. So those earning less than 27,850, which is about 1.5 million people, they will pay slightly less income tax than if they had lived elsewhere in the UK this year. And those earning less than £50,000 a year will actually see no change compared to last year. But it's those top rates that are having that impact again. So both in Scotland and the rest of the UK, the changes are impacting higher earners. In Scotland, a person earning £50,000 per year is going to be £1,500 worse off than if they'd lived in England or Wales. a little bit on the statutory rates for parental leave and SSP. So statutory parental pay is, of course, paid in whole weeks and is effective from the week that includes the 6th of April. So this year, the new rate will be paid effectively from Sunday, the 2nd of April. The high rate SMP might be 90% of average weekly earnings, of course, if the calculation is lower than 172.48. So these increases reflect the inflation rates, which were 10.8% in the year to January 2023. SSP, people don't sort of bother, especially since the COVID SSP recoveries are all gone now. Maybe you're not recording SSP, but please try to keep those records up to date if you can. Of course, many companies, occupational sick pay is going to be in excess of that entitlement. But if you're not recording this from the beginning of the absence, then you might be missing linked PIWs, period of incapacity for work, or you might miss the expiry of that 28 weeks total entitlement. So do keep an eye on that if you can. All of these new bandings and rates, by the way, will be applied automatically to your Ciphr Payroll or Accord software if you are a hosted customer. The release notes will be available on the 15th of March, so that will be next week. I won't spend too long on this one. It's just to flash that up, just so that you can see the changes to these rates. I haven't done a slide on the NI tables because I didn't think you'd want to be put through that, but those are included in the release notes if you're interested. So there are changes to the bandings for employees repaying their student loans through the payroll, though. Post-grad plus another can run together, but no more than one of the others can run concurrently. So you can't have a plan 1 and a plan 2, for example. There is a new plan 5 on the way. So that is for students who start an undergraduate course on or after the 1st of August 2023. So of course it's going to take a couple of years before we see those catching up with us in payroll. The threshold will be £2,083 a month or £25,000 a year, and the repayment rate will be the same. It'll still be the 9%. Now, I know I've used this same slide for a couple of years now. I thought I wasn't going to have to do IR35 again this year, so apologies for wheeling this one out again. And anyone with contractors in their organisation is going to be familiar with the off-payroll workers process by now. But I've put it in again just to confirm the consequences of the mini budget. It was an off and on again. So thank you very much, Quasi, for that one. So, but just as a refresher, of course, contractors could always self-declare. Most would send their invoices to their client as a limited company, and so they'd probably end up paying corporation tax at around the which is 19% currently. Just as an aside, corporation tax increases to 25% from April 23. You've probably seen a few reports on that in the press on the effect of business. So the change of responsibility of that declaration to the hirer meant that there were blanket changes to contractors becoming PAYE. It was felt unfair that there were more people paying tax and NI, but actually really it was a leveller, and that was what it was designed to be. Kwasi Kwarteng announced a repeal of the IR35 reforms, and those were supposed to be effective from April 2023. This coming April. That mini budget, it had such a disastrous effect on the value of the pound, and also on inflation rates, and all of the tax cuts that were announced were really widely criticised. So 10 days later, we had that U-turn on the proposed plans to abolish the 45 pence tax rate. and Kwasi was fired on the same day. Jeremy Hunt, the new Chancellor, reversed the IR35 repeal just 3 days later. So in effect, there is no change. So we had a 2-week sort of, oh my God, everything's changing again, but now we are completely back to normal. National minimum wage. So you can see the gap is closing still further between age 21 and 23. I mentioned last year about the possibility of age 23 becoming that new minimum wage threshold, and we can see how close that's got again this year. So next year, I could put money on it. I'm not sure, but I might put money on the 23-year-olds actually being the 21-year-olds actually being the new threshold. So let's watch this space. When the minimum wage rates change, of course, the increase applies to the first pay reference period, starting on or after the date of any change. And when calculating your compliance with the rate, please make sure that you include any allowances or pensions that have a salary sacrifice impact on the pay, because of course that's not allowed to take people below the minimum wage rate. So if you do want to check what deductions are allowable, what counts as pay, what counts as hours, then please do check the pages on .gov. There's a really great, many pages of information about minimum wage and the calculations in there. So even if you have got your system, your payroll system set up to warn or check of exceptions, please do check that there hasn't been any other new allowances or different pay rates coming through on your payroll that might have affected that. So whilst the national minimum wage is statutory, the real living wage is voluntary and applies to 18 years and over. At Ciphr, we are a real living wage employer. Just thought I'd get that one in. So the new living wage actually was announced last September, 22nd of September last year. Since it's voluntary, there's actually no fixed increase date. Obviously, you could do it straight away, but employers are asked to implement the rise by the 14th of May, 2023. Gender pay gap reporting requirements had extended deadlines during 2020. We're now back to normal. The 2020 did have an unexpected effect that the ONS considered 2020 to be an uncertain year's statistics due to furlough. So actually, they didn't even publish the, as far as I could find anyway, they didn't actually publish that statistic, what the gender pay gap was for that year. But the ONS is a really fascinating source of data. There's all sorts of other factors affecting pay, including things like age, qualifications, your region, and ethnicity. I mentioned ethnicity pay gap before as well, and I did expect that there would be further news this year, particularly in the light of Baroness Ruby McGregor-Smith's review. There's a link on this slide. Do take a look. It is a really fascinating report, but there is still no mandatory reporting requirement. The BEIS conducted a consultation back in 2019 now, I mean that's 4 years ago, and they recommended reporting for companies with 50+ employees, but the government prefers this to still remain voluntary. 11% of employers reported in 2018, and this rose to 19% in 2021. It can demonstrate a company is serious about tackling inequalities, but it also actually makes really good business sense. And this was something that we looked at ourselves at Ciphr when we're looking at how we're recruiting new colleagues at Ciphr. And there's again a really fascinating statistic that ethnically and culturally diverse businesses can see up to 36% more profitability. So it's undeniable, the benefit. So I said I'd come back to this. So Harper Trust versus Brazil. So again, I'm sure none of you would have missed this case law outcome. So the background to it was that Ms. Brazil was a music teacher at the Harper Trust, and she was employed on a permanent contract, but for term time only. So she was paid for the hours she taught, which varied from week to week. And so following the then ACAS guidance, you won't find this on ACAS anymore, by the way, I did look. So the ACAS guidance at the time was that you could multiply the hours worked by 12.07%, and then multiply that figure by the hourly rate of pay, and then that sum could be paid as a lump of holiday pay. And this method was really widely used across all sorts of different industries, and certainly it was a calculation that we were frequently asked to set up for customers. This was challenged, and in a unanimous verdict, the Supreme Court rejected the Trust's arguments for the basis of that calculation. And in short, it confirmed the entitlement to 5.6 weeks holiday applies to full and part year workers without prorating. So those with no normal working hours, pay ought to be calculated by reference to the hours worked over a 52-week average, rather than limited to the number of hours that the worker has worked. It is having a really significant impact on all payroll and HR teams at the moment, to make sure that there is compliance with this requirement of the legislation. So it's affecting term time only workers, seasonal workers, those on 0 hours contracts, bank staff. It's so broad. So it's impacting so many employers as well over those sectors, schools, care homes, NHS, recruiters who recruit temporary workers. So this part year worker entitlement to 5.6, which of course is 4 weeks plus the 8 bank holidays of statutory annual leave, has to be calculated using a holiday entitlement reference period at their average weekly pay. So you're also supposed to ignore any weeks that the worker did not work. It's so difficult to actually get to that, especially if you're paying like a month in arrears. You don't know actually what the reference period is for those weeks, or unless you've got a clocking system, some kind of time and attendance system, or that you're asking people to fill in a timesheet or a spreadsheet. I don't know. It's just generally in payroll, it is hard to get that level of detail of data for the hours worked. And also an interesting effect is that as a result of that calculation, a part year worker could end up being entitled to a larger holiday entitlement than part-time workers who work the same number of hours across the year. So it's a really difficult situation at the moment. So that has been recognised. There is a consultation ongoing. Catherine, if we can move on. Thank you. So the BIS have a consultation. Now, you've probably seen that date straight away. The close date is coming up this week. But if the results of this new interpretation of the law does affect your payroll, your workers, and your calculations, and you have concern about compliance, I absolutely would urge you to have your say. And these are some of the examples of the questions that are on the site. As I say, just to do so, different calculations for holiday pay. It's going to be important that we get to a fair but easy way to pay everybody. Thank you. So just a little news roundup before we move on to the next section. Right to work checks. Again, I'm sure you're aware of this already, but during the pandemic, employers were permitted remote document checks. That was extended to September 2022, but now you need once again to be checking and copying original documents like passports and visas. There's a new share code online as well, so workers can create that themselves. So if they validate their identity on the .gov site, then they can just give you a share code. So if they provide that to an employer, they don't also need to provide the documentation. Pensions auto-enrolment participation in the private sector stays at around 15.3 million people, which is fantastic for savers for the future. That trigger for auto-enrolment has been £10,000 since it was introduced 10 years ago. You might feel that should be changed, but actually with the inflation increases over time, effectively it is bringing more people into saving for pensions, and that's a really good thing. Studies have been conducted to test the effect of changing that trigger threshold. Aligning with the lower earnings limit would bring 200,000 more people into pensions. Aligning with the personal income tax allowance actually would decrease the number of pension savers by about 150,000 people. So you know, there are studies going on. You know, it is being looked at, but the government has decided to maintain the trigger at the 10,000 limit. Oh, excuse me. To bring as many people as possible into pensions saving, but avoiding those unlikely to benefit. There is going to be a new system of top-ups, though, for workers earning below the personal allowance limit. So obviously those people, because they're not paying tax, they're not getting the tax relief benefit that others would. So that net pay arrangement, the 20% will be introduced from the 24-25 tax year. So those earners not currently benefiting from the 20% tax relief will look to sort of even out that inequality. So that's a really, really great change. Work from home tax relief is back to the regular rules. The £6 per week relief if your job requires you to live far from your office or there is no office. So you can't now claim tax relief if you choose to work from home. So choose was something that was considered in the pandemic. Well, we all had to work from home in the pandemic, except payroll with key workers, of course. So you can't claim tax relief if you choose to work from home. This includes if your employment contract lets you work from home some or all of the time, or you work from home because of COVID-19, or your employer has an office but you can't go there sometimes because it's full. So you can see that's excluded a whole bunch of people now from being able to claim the £6 a week. We do have an extra bank holiday. We've got 3 bank holidays in May, so employers will need to look at how they approach the additional bank holiday. That's interesting how that might affect that 5.6 weeks that we were just discussing for the part-year workers just now for holiday entitlement. So it will be determined to some extent by the wording in the employee's contracts. So, for example, if your contract, obviously we had this with the Jubilee last year as well. So if the contract, for example, entitles employees to take leave on all bank and public holidays, there's going to be that extra one, then the employer will be required to grant the extra day as leave. Finally, do check, it could be a 53-week year. The 5th of April falls on a Wednesday. So if you have a payday on the Wednesday, that could be the 53 weeks. So obviously your software will do that for you, give the extra weeks tax allowances. But the settings could also apply if you have a 2-weekly payroll and you need to do a 54-week a week, 54 on that date. Okay, so on to the next section. This, I know this is like a holding slide, but actually that's that lovely new interface that I hope you've all been enjoying using during the last year. But in this section, we're going to be introducing the new features and the functionality that you'll have access to using the Ciphr Payroll system. The new release is due in the next week, and the full guidance will be sent to you as well for the step-by-step year-end processes and the release notes as well for the new software. These are going to be available on the Ciphr Academy platform for you to download as well, and so email links will be sent to you. Just before we go on to those, I just wanted to say about the Academy as well. So as you know, there were a lot of changes to national insurance throughout 2022. And this gave our development team the opportunity to release some new features a little bit earlier. Of course, you know, normally we save everything up for the big March update. So there have been a few additional things throughout the year as well. So I'm just going to cover those two to make sure you didn't miss anything. But every customer is entitled to free access to our Ciphr Academy platform. So this has got a whole load of payroll documentation, all of Ciphr's webinars, and a lot of other useful information, sort of guides and things and little videos, all sorts of things on there. So if you're a Ciphr HR customer, the access to this is actually through your HR solution. So you should be able to just click through. For our payroll only customers, if you don't have access to this just yet, please will you email me, please contact me, and I'll make sure that our learning and development team set you up with access so we can get you onto to that platform. Okay, when we share those slides, Catherine, we can share my email, can't we, with everyone when we share the recording and the slides after today?
Yeah, we can sort that, or if you don't have access, just drop your name in the question box now and I can record that.
Fabulous, thank you very much, Catherine. Task Manager. This was a new feature in last year's release, but I just wanted to make sure that you're all aware of it and that you're making use of it and taking advantage of all the time savings that it can provide you. I know sometimes when there's new stuff, you've got your processes and your routines already going, but this tool will help you to batch up groups of processes, reports, exports, and you can run them as a single batch operation. So something like pensions, for example. So say if you've got Nest or Aviva or something like that for your pensions, and you're having to do a joiner export, and then you're going back in and doing a contributions sort of export, then just bundle it up together and run it as one. When you first access it, a list will be blank and you can start creating. So you click the new button and you'll be able to select from the standard reports, but if you've done any of your own export layouts or the consultancy team created some, then you should be able to see them on the list there. We added a couple of new facilities during the year as well, to include backups. So backups can be added to these, and the payroll update as well. So we are looking to sort of keep optimizing this area. So do check back. Also, although it's not shown on this screenshot, you can also copy a batch. So if you wanted to make a copy of an existing one, but just make a couple of tweaks to it, then you can do that, edit that, rather than start from scratch each time. This is a new tweak as well that we've got in here. So in the period accumulators, you will see additional fields for point-in-time reporting of contractual hours and FTE. And the P45 emailing. So you used to only be able to do this for one pay period at a time, but you can do it for a whole range now. So if you do get those sort of inquiries, say somebody said that they would like you to email them the last 6 months pay slips, then you can put the start and finish date in as well now. So so you could do a whole range. It will, of course, give you that preview, so you can see which ones it's picked up. But yeah, that date range is brilliant. Again, it's going to be a really great time saver for you. So if you are going to do that, of course, make sure you are selecting the, I've got the red line around it there, make sure you're selecting the employee that you want to send those to. And then it's going to pick up your templates. There was a new report added as well for the apprenticeship levy, so you can see the national insurance will pay for everyone. So I've just highlighted on the menu where you'll be able to find that. So you can check those apprenticeship levy calculations. Those do pre-populate when you do your EPS, but you can just cross-check the liability checks here, especially if you are part of a group of companies and perhaps the 15,000 allowance is against a couple of companies or so. If you are a MyPay user, this is our portal for reports and pay slips and so on. So if you use this platform, you would have noticed a refresh on the appearance. So over on the left, that's the old look. And the two screenshots on the other side of the screen, of course, are the new, cleaner look. A few enhancements were built in as well. So the maximum interval to reset the password has been set from 99 to 999 days. And there's also a new setting in there to control the number of historic payslips that are displayed here. That could be useful for you if you've got many, many years of history of built up, then we can reduce the number that are there. So that's actually set in the main system parameters in the Ciphr Payroll solution itself. If you know where parameters are, then you can find them. I think it's the second tab across if you go into your parameters. The platform's also been optimized for mobile access, so it's a lot more stable on the on phones. And the historic payslips are now displayed in the little list box. That's that other sort of red outline that I've done there. So when you access MyPay from a mobile device, you're going to be able to really quickly see which payslip you are pulling down. Of course, that's going to pull down a PDF. There are further, I'm not allowed to tell you too much, but there are a lot more improvements on the way for MyPay. Little teaser. Okay. Onto the final section. This is the point where our bureau customers might want to leave us. You can stay if you like, it's up to you. But our payroll bureau customers will have the tax year end performed for them by their payroll administrator in the PBS bureau, and they will also publish your P60s for you, of course. So this is a summary in this section of the step-by-step guide that we also issue at this time of year. The guide clearly sets out 6 defined steps. We've used this 6-step process for years and years and years. So some customers might have their software on-premise and some are hosted. So if the software is on your own network, there are still a few customers who have the software on premise. The steps will differ slightly. I'm not going to cover actually how to update the software, but if you do need assistance with that, of course, our customer care team is there to help you. But again, there's all included in the end of year guide that we'll be sending you. So step 1, just for on-premise, you'll be downloading from the Ciphr website. So you've had to log on to a portal before, but the URL has changed a little bit. So we'll be sending you the guidance for that. So download those files, back up your system, and then apply the update. And it does go through a step-by-step wizard. I always have a vision of Dumbledore when we say about wizards. It's not Dumbledore. It will just go through step by step for you. That's the plan. The next steps will be for everyone. So that's step 1 to 3. If you do have the hosted software with Ciphr, then you don't need to worry about that till we've done that for you. Okay, yeah. So sorry, Catherine. Yeah, let's move on. So step 4 will be for everyone. So the first thing we need to do is to make sure that we've fully reconciled the payrolls and all of our reports before we move on to actually clearing down the tax year. Now, you know, we're very risk averse in payroll. We like to check everything and check again. So before you start, shut the door, put on your do not disturb, but make sure nobody is going to bother you whilst you go through these steps. So you will be going through those reports. Sorry, Catherine, thank you again. So under that data validation menu option, that's going to take you to the reports that you need. So these are all standard reports in the software. So please do check them all carefully. The RTI menu can be found under other utilities on the main menu, and there's going to be a lot of really great, very, very detailed reports that you can pull out there as well. So again, if you do find any issues as you're going through these, then do give customer care a call and they'll be able to give you some assistance. So these data validation stages and the summary reports, because they're all standard, they're there all the time, you can actually run these at any point during the year. So if you want to do them now before you've got to the end of the year and just start doing that sort of that check through, or if you want to do it as a regular housekeeping exercise each quarter or something like that, then please do. So yep, then running the P32 and the P35. I know P35 isn't a thing anymore, but the report is still there, and it's really great to help cross-check your totals. Do take care of that note about SMP as well, that you're checking the 100% value, not the 92% value, which might appear on the other reports. Okay, so we're fully balanced, reconciled, everything adds up. There's been no manual adjustments through the year, and everything's looking good to go. So that's our reporting done. We can move on to the new tax year. So you can see again, we are just working through one menu. I don't know if we've got any brand new customers on the call today, but we are just going through step by step on the one menu to get through this whole process. This is all administrator only access, by the way, so it will be greyed out if you don't have full administrator rights. If we go to create the new tax year, click start, you'll be asked if you are sure, click yes, and then after that you'll get a message to say it's been successfully created and do you want to view the log. Say no, it's going to be fine, and it will also have created a default calendar for the following year, and you can choose to edit the calendar if you wish. So monthly payrolls are normally going to display from the first to the last of the month. According to HMRC, you must report the usual date that you pay your employees, even if you pay them earlier or later. So for example, if you pay your employees early because your usual payday falls on a bank holiday, you know, those Christmas paydays being brought forward, you should still enter your regular payday. So if you always pay on the 28th, this should still say the 28th. So these will be the expected RTI submission dates. So create a new tax year for each of your payrolls. If you've got multiple companies set up on the system, you will need to do that for each of them individually. And the recalculate tab on here will adjust the dates from the first entered. So for example, if you have a weekly payroll, because there are different tabs for the week, the different pay frequencies. So if you have a weekly payday and the first payday, oh yeah, we know we've got Easter, haven't we? Yeah, so whatever the first payday is, it's just going to it'll have a cascade effect all the way down the other paydays. So step 5. Resetting your accumulators. So this is what we're going to do to clear out all of the old year tax year to date values from your system. So do follow the guide really closely on that. There's going to be a lot more screenshots in there. Do go step by step through each of the pages on there, because it's going to take you through each of the different accumulators. So make sure you've got the right things selected on there. Do match your system. The system will back up your data and restart the system automatically at the end of this process. Tax code uplifts using the change wizard. As we know from earlier on in the webinar, there are no personal increases this year, so the personal allowances are exactly the same. But I would say, you know, having been through so many changes, just in case the HMRC does do any late changes, then just keep an eye on it. But it's going to be really unlikely at this stage. You will still need to use this wizard though to remove any week 1 markers. So if anyone was on week 1 tax code at week 52 or 53, then you do need to run this through, just clear those out so that everybody starts with a cumulative code at the beginning of the year. Any P9s that you have waiting in the wings for the new tax year will come through when you do your DPS, when you go to the DPS tool as part of your normal payroll process for April. So removing the old year data does need a password as well. That password will be in the guidance notes, and it's set to 6 years. But you can change that if you want. So if you want longer than 6 years, actually you can change that in the parameters. So again, check the guide if you'd like to change that setting. So if you want 7, 8, 9, you know, it's entirely up to you. It's your data, so you know we don't predetermine that. Step 5, pensions. There are no changes to the statutory rates, but you might find if you've got teachers' pensions, local government pensions or NHS pensions that those might need updating, particularly if the employer rates have changed for your local authority, for example. So do contact our customer care team and they will be able to support you for any of those changes. We're nearly there. So finally, we need to make sure everybody's going to get their P60s. There is a plain paper print if you want that. Make sure you pick up the correct template for 2023. Otherwise, head to your utilities menu as shown here and get ready to export the P60s for your chosen distribution method. And if you've got leavers, of course, make sure that you've got the correct exclusions selected. So the screen that we're looking at here, that's for a bulk emailing for the P60s. That's a standard facility on the system, and you can create your own email template for that as well, of course. The P60 template will also be added to the data service. That's going to be around the 5th or 6th of April, and that template will be reading data directly from the database. So correctly configured clients should automatically see P60s appear when they roll over to the new tax year. So that's our HR customers will have the P60s published to the employee self-service automatically. If you don't see the P60s published there when you do your tax year end, then again, just contact the customer care team and they can have a look at that for you. But otherwise, the MyPay customers, again, it uses the data service. So again, those will all be published around that time. Yeah, so there will be a checklist for you. If you, quick thing just on that last one as well, if you are still emailing and you want to use the MyPay portal for distributing P60s, then again, give us a call and we'll have your customer success manager have a look at that for you. So the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will be really happy to help you with any questions, or if you have any additional requirements that you'd like us to help you with, then of course contact me or your customer success manager at Ciphr.
Brilliant, thank you, Amanda. I'm just going to pop back in and say hi, just to give you a little bit of a break. Hopefully that's been a really helpful and useful look at everything that's changing for the new tax year. My problem with sorry. And also for setting up your system. As Amanda mentioned, if you don't currently have access to Ciphr Academy, we can sort that out for you. Just put Ciphr Academy or something similar like that in the question box for you now, and we will take that away and sort it afterwards. I've got a couple of queries, Amanda, that I'm hoping you can help with.
Sure.
We are currently unable to email P45s. Does our system need further setting up in order to do so?
You should be able to email P45s, and it's on one of the RTI menus. So yes, you should be able to do that. So Catherine, perhaps if you could take that customer's details and we will follow that up for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And Hannah asks, if our payday is the 25th every month, but we pay early if it falls on a weekend, should we be reporting it as the 25th no matter what?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, so the HMRC guidance is to have the expected payday all the way through the year. So yours can say the 25th all the way down on that screen. Paying earlier is not a problem because you'll be submitting your RTI earlier.
Okay, fantastic. That's it for the questions. If you have anything else pressing to ask Amanda, please send it in now. I don't have any questions to ask Amanda to fill the time because this is not my area of expertise. Anyway, if you do have questions that come to mind afterwards, you can contact Amanda or you can contact the customer care team. And also don't forget that we'll be sending out full release notes and step-by-step guidance for your system update around the 15th of the month. Don't forget this is all being recorded and it's all going to be emailed to you, so you can go back and review that at your own speed. And for those of you who have access to Academy, it will be on there too, along with the release notes. If you need more help with tax year end, contact the customer care team. Their details are on the screen now. You can reach them by phone or by logging a ticket to our online portal. Thank you, Amanda, for sharing all your expertise today. I really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for joining us. We hope you found this session really helpful. Please send in a little bit of feedback in the exit survey if you have. That helps us improve for next time. Best of luck with the end of your tax year. It will be fine. You'll get through it. Don't worry about it too much. And we will see you again at another Ciphr webinar soon. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.